welcome to XReality Podcast. I'm the host, Dominic Wu, and beside me is our guest, Anthony. Each week, we will have conversations with industry leaders and explore the unexpected connections and opportunities between diverse sectors in the world of spatial AI and XR. Today, our guest is Anthony DEMEUSY. Hi, Anthony. Could you share a little bit about your background with us?
Hi, Dominic. So my background, so I'm a biomedical engineer with, let's see, a strong data science and AI background. I have a Six Sigma Black Belt from Georgia Tech. I'm a strategic AI advisor for the most university in New York, and I'm a contributor for Towards AI. So I've been in the healthcare field for quite a while now. I worked in different roles in R&D, marketing, service and support, even quality management for some time, and different countries, so Switzerland, France, and now in the US. Always in the medical device industry, mostly in dental, so dental consumables, imaging, practice management system, but also some time in cardiac surgery and anesthesia. So how did I came to working with AI and specializing in AI and machine learning? Well, I started actually to study applied mathematics. So that was my first training, but it was, I would say, a little bit early. That was early 2000. And at that time, we had, you see, the theoretical concept, but it was not something that was very well developed, let's say, on the job market, just because we are lacking the computing power, we're lacking data. So we had the foundations, but I pivoted to biomedical engineering during my studies, and it was really because I was interested in both the engineering skills, in the engineering science, but also the healthcare sector. So that was kind of combining two interests of mine. And I started to work for a good 15 years after my studies in the medical device industry, always trying to use data-driven approach in my work, but not really applying a lot of artificial intelligence or machine learning tools in my job. And I guess that it really changed to me, at least it changed in 2018. For years, I was seeing that things were starting to move. We were starting to see new applications and things that could be deployed in production in an industrial context. So what happened in 2018, actually, I had an accident, so nothing too serious. But I could not move around too much for a few months, several months, man. And so I had a lot of time on my hand to read, catch up on things, and I really used that time to catch up with everything that was AI related because I said I was seeing that things were coming to maturity, and I guess that after that I was really hooked on this. So started to take training, learning Python, and before that we were using MATLAB. This is what I had initially learned. Starting to applying AI technique and machine learning into my job, starting to speak at events, first being invited by providers, by suppliers that were taking notice of what I was doing. Started to write, and well, here I am. So it's kind of my journey towards
Cool.
AI.
Yeah. So, as for the AI in healthcare, what do you see, for example, like you mentioned dental, right? What do you
Mhm.
see, for example, like a dental using AI to facilitate the production? I remember like before I had my teeth, my tooth kind of like doing kind of some adjustment. So every time the nurse will scan my tooth and become a 3D model. So I saw like do you see like a lot of like a different process for dental can be kind of I would say using like an algorithm and also using AI to help facilitate those.
So one area where AI is used a lot, that's indeed for orthodontics. And well, the challenge of orthodontics is that you can have treatment courses that will last for 12, 14, 12 24 months, even longer sometimes. And you need to have a good idea of what will happen over the course of the treatment period. So being able to simulate how an orthodontic treatment, what the outcome will be, that's something that is super useful and that helps also optimizing the treatment plan, communicating with the patient, and engaging the patient in the treatment. So treatment planification in particular in orthodontics, that's something that definitely started, I would say, yeah, perhaps 5, 6 years ago in dental. That's now widely used. We also have a lot of treatment planning, for instance, for implant placement, and a lot of applications related to imaging, to auto tracing, identification of structures at risk. So all that that can help the work of the clinician. We also see a lot of improvement. So here I'm really talking about dental with dental practice management system. So it's not as much as it's not focused on the clinical application, but on the operational side of dental practices, because obviously dental practices, they are also businesses, and there is a lot of support processes, administrative processes, and so that's something that is very important for this type of customers.
Cool. Yeah. So, what do you see, for example, like the applications in healthcare that really drastic change the healthcare landscape?
So if we think about, let's say, the next 10 years in
Yeah.
healthcare, so obviously people pay a lot of attention to generative AI, to large language model at this time. But we already see that we are moving from AI solution that are just one LLM to solution where we have multiple LLMs working in complex systems with generative AI PCs, traditional AI systems, and all that working together has some kind of complex workflow. This is what we call the agentic workflows. So I definitely see that generative AI will be used in the future, but being integrated in this complex workflows, most likely providing reasoning and planning abilities, and orchestrating these workflows. That will be very flexible, but we could think about an LLM defining actions that have to be taken, in calling another system that will retrieve electronic health record for the patient. This electronic health record will be treated and will be processed by another predictive AI piece that will predict an outcome. So this is really the type of system that I see in the future of healthcare. There's another significant impact of generative AI. That's the fact that it provides a natural way to interact with a system. And it means that generative AI, large language model in particular, I see them as providing a front end for the patient so that they can interact with this AI powered system. And I see that in particular for patient triage in emergency settings. I also believe that AI, so one key aspect of AI and machine learning is the ability to process data at scale. At this point, we have an immense amount of health data, health records for patients, and this is just much more data than you can humanly process. So this is, and clearly AI, one of the strengths is the fact that it can process data at scale. So I see AI being used to process data related to patients in bulk and being able to identify patterns that we can't humanly see. I also believe that AI could be some kind of safeguard, could act as a second pair of eyes here. I think that there is a lot of benefit in having both human and AI looking at the case, because well, we are human. We see what we are looking for, and sometimes if you are looking for a specific disease specific diagnosis, if you want to eliminate a diagnosis, you will be paying attention to this particular point, but you may miss things that will be visible or that you could identify. And well, let's be realistic again. We are human. Sometimes we see radiologists who have 24 hours shift. After 24 hours shift, well, we're not as efficient as at the beginning
Yeah.
of a shift. And AI here can be a second pair of eyes, which is something that can be very, very useful. CatServe has feedback mechanism for healthcare provider, either after the fact or during procedure as well. And here, this is where we can see potential synergy with augmented reality systems, where we can have guidance provided to a healthcare provider while actually performing a procedure on a patient.
Mm.
So
So, yeah,
this
go
is
ahead.
mostly, let's say, clinical, but like I was mentioning for dental practices, we have a global challenge where we have a shortage of medical resources. We do not have enough healthcare providers. And I think that we should really try, and that's already happening. I should try to use AI so that medical resources can focus on medical work. We see too many times medical resources being wasted on data entry, on scheduling patient, on administrative tasks. And this is an area, so operational efficiency,
Mm.
automation, where AI can be very, very useful. But that's a way also to address part of the challenge that we see in many countries regarding shortage of healthcare providers.
Yeah, according to what you mentioned, that AI really can help like the operation and also the shortage of the kind of like a healthcare provider. And have you seen like there's a new startup in LA? I remember it's in LA. It's pretty much a box that it's like it claims that it can replace all the humans or all the healthcare staff. So it's a kind of like a box. And if you want to do some simple healthcare checkup, you can enter to that box and there will be like a LED screen and you have an app and you can sync and it will directly help you to measure all your like a health, your body, and also it will do some simple like I don't know injection for you, but there's no human, it's only robot, and later on you can get out and I don't know, the data will sync. It's happening and it raised a lot of money like fundings. What do you see this types of really like when I saw it I was like wow, it's pretty scary that later on there will be kind of like a robot operate you, right, doing surgeries and also nurse. What do you see that these types of like creative startups, and also when I saw like a Tesla robot is coming out, it was like wow, maybe in the future there will be a lot of doctor, nurse, or some simple like a household, like a like I don't know caretaker, like using robot. What do you see those like a very innovative high end tech?
So I think that's interesting, but I believe there is still a need, and I don't see this need disappearing, to have a human in the loop. I'm a strong believer and strong proponent of, say, human created AI
Mm.
and AI assisted human. I think this is where we get the best result. So I definitely I see a potential here. That's something that is easy to access. This is something that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there is definitely something that here is interesting, in particular if you think again about triaging patients, prioritizing patients. But I think that there is still a need to have human in the loop. There are certain things that at this point AI is still not able to pick up. We are making great progress, and there are improvements really being published every day, but there are still certain things that we are missing. And there are sometimes all the non-verbal cues, everything that happens during the interaction between a patient and a healthcare provider that sometimes is very, very useful to achieve a diagnosis, to implement a treatment course. And we also have to think about the patient engagement. And at this point, I'm not convinced that a patient will be as engaged in his treatment, in his healthcare, if he's interacting with um, a physician, a real human, a healthcare provider, or just an AI box, basically. But it also makes me think about one thing. So this AI box relies on data and can take your blood pressure, perhaps your heart rate, all these metrics. This is something actually is more and more easily available. I think that now in the US, we have more than 60% of people who wear things like what we call wearable devices that have some kind of health monitoring capabilities. Typically, that will be a smartwatch.
Yeah.
And um, this is a great opportunity, I think, from a healthcare perspective. Today, the way we envision healthcare, this is something that happens in one location, in practice typically, and at one specific time. And it's also limited in terms of the data that we can process, the amount of information that we can process during that time. As soon as you put wearable devices in a continuous data stream, then you can basically shift from healthcare at a specific point in time and space to health monitoring. And health monitoring may lead to healthcare, but I think here we have a great opportunity. And that's something that I really see being transformative.
Yeah. So, as for the data privacy and security, what do you see like AI? Because especially in healthcare, we all know that people are concerning about their kind of data being revealed. How do you protect patients' data while you need patients' data to train your AI? So, how do you balance this?
So I think we need to be very transparent about the data that we collect, also transparent about the fact that we collect data. We can't assume that if someone, a patient, a provider, a healthcare structure or a business, if someone does not say, no, I don't want you to collect my data, we cannot assume this is a yes. We have to be active and actually say, hey, are you okay to provide your data? Some data, obviously, when we see your data, that's a bit too much because we want to be specific about the data that we collect. We want also to educate people, and that's something that we are trying to do about why their data is important, what is the value. And we need people to understand that in the end, when we think about developing AI system, one record, so data for one person, has little to, well, typically no interest actually, when you think about it. What is interesting when you start aggregating data? So we are not really collecting data for one specific person. What we want is to collect a data set. Neural network, though they are getting better, they are data inefficient. To train a neural network, we need millions and millions of data points. That's really what it takes. And that's why we have to collect data.
Yeah.
But
So,
we need to be transparent, and we need also a way to opt out. I'm sure that we all at some point had this experience where we are trying to opt out of a service, opt out of a data collection process, and it's just hidden so well that you will take it's near to impossible.
Yeah. So, for example, like right now, we just mentioned that, for example, like LinkedIn start using training about your data. And then I watch like I think the CTO of OpenAI, people start asking the CTO, the woman, that how do you train AI? And she was very trying to being very blurry about it, and she said, "Oh, anything online publicly." So other people start asking like, such as YouTube, or and she didn't answer anything. So we pretty much can say that there might be something as long as you publish. And do you think it is like I don't know, legal to just grab anything online? Or because as far as I know, there are a lot of like a press, I don't know, media press. I forgot, it's like a New York Times or some other press media already forbidden that their public information got will be grabbed, or like anybody use their data cannot, it's not legal basically. So, what do you see those like data? I would say gold mining right now. All the data becomes the new oil right now. So yeah, so I don't know. Like for healthcare, it seems like people are aware of it. But for example, right, like right now the tools. If you see Adobe recently released a tons of really great creative tools, it's AI enhanced. And it seems like every software, if you didn't use AI, then you are outdated, or the investor will push you to add some AI in. So, what do you see these types of like outside of healthcare, and people start grabbing anything online, and then you couldn't really I don't know. I feel like you couldn't really stop them. So, well, what do you see this types of phenomena?
That's a very, very complex topic. And you mentioned news outlets, for instance, that prevent AI AI companies from training models on their data. It's interesting to see that some of the same news outlets will prevent that, will actually develop models to create news. So they are using also large language model and generative AI to publish news. So at the same time, we understand that there is an interest here. Something that we have seen recently is also more and more agreement between pure AI companies, in particular OpenAI, and news outlets. And I don't want to cite specific news outlet, but I think that there is an agreement, for instance, between the New York Times and OpenAI now. Don't quote me on that. It may be another news outlet, but we see more and more such agreements, and I think that this makes sense. I think that we need a way to opt out. The same way you can prevent Google from scrolling your website. This is something that you can do. There is also a lot of debate around, for instance, the use of music or
Yeah.
generative AI. And here I am a bit more nuanced here because um, we have to uh, to differentiate, see, plagiarism
Mhm.
and inspiration.
Yeah.
And you can think about um, human musician, just a human composition process. We're definitely off healthcare. That's an interesting topic. But anything that is composed, any new track that is composed, is actually inspired by things that we have listened to, that we have heard in the past. So somehow I think it's a bit similar. As long as it's not repeating, as long as it is novel content, well, I'm a bit more nuanced on this.
Yeah, I think for human composer, we all know that for music, it's more like a the people mention that when you see a movie, the soul part of the movie is the background music or the soundtrack, right?
Mhm.
Soundtrack. So it, when we see right now, there are a lot of AI kind of tools that can generate music. For example, like I use Sono to generate. I create games, so I use a lot of like, for example, 11 Labs to do voiceover, and I do like a lot of sound. When I use it, I feel great. But when I think of people because of that software and lose their job, I feel like a very I don't know, I feel uneasy because I wrote a book um, like a few months ago. And then before I want to kind of like hire somebody at the beginning, I want to hire a voiceover to read the book for the audio book. But it costs probably 3 to 6 months for reading narratives. And also it costs 3,000 to 5,000 for the entire fee. And later on, I was okay. I start telling myself maybe I just do the voiceover for my narratives of the book. So it
Mhm.
took me probably around 2 months, every day read a couple hours. And later on, I start seeing Amazon. Um, they have a kind of beta button to turn your entire Kindle ebook into an audiobook within probably a few hours. So that's why I use, and it's free. So I use that, and later on, the outcome is great. So I was like, wow, it doesn't even need me to read it. And now it's
Mhm.
just one button click and it will automatically turn. So I can see a lot of, you see Hollywood strike, all the,
Mhm.
yeah, music people. Yeah, I still think that it's very expensive and took so many years to learn music. And now all the apps is pretty much replace, I would say, the entry level and mediocre types of jobs in the like a music industry so far. Yeah.
Mhm. So for the music industry, well, I don't think that it will replace all artists. I think that there will still always be a place for human artists. Definitely, it will have an impact. I mean, there's no way around it. But I'm just thinking about the artists that I'm listening, and I think that with artists, and I'm sure that's true for many artists, it goes beyond just music. You
Mm,
have live performance, you have
yeah,
all
right.
the personnel
Performance.
that goes around
How
that.
about like a robot become the performer? Robot.
Yeah, but that you will still need some scenography. Yes, you can also use AI for scenography, for stage, for direction, this kind of thing. But in the end, you still have room for human in the process, and
Mhm.
that's something that I believe will still be needed
Yeah, human in the process.
for the
Yes.
creative process. That's yeah, there is definitely that will be transformative. Music industry actually already transformed a lot, changed a lot over the past 20 years. Just to think about um, barely not barely anyone, barely no one now purchases CDs.
Oh, yeah.
We
I
have
mean, yeah,
there is
CD,
returning
right?
back to finance, but now that's all about streaming,
Yeah.
and people are more and more making revenue out of live performances rather than selling music. So it already changed a lot, and that was painful actually for the industry music. Um, so I guess that this will keep evolving. There will be consequences for sure. There will still be a place for human, and we still need human in this process. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And also, for example, like for you to see human and AI, right? We can see like there are a lot of like trends recently. For example, um, like a collaboration, right? For example, like for AI healthcare projects, what do you see like an interdisciplinary collaboration? For example, like how do you collaborate with a lot of different sectors of the department to work on doing this because I know it will be involved with all different layers of things to create a really good product for like healthcare or clinic types of industry.
So I think that we are still in the early phases of AI in
Mm.
healthcare, AI in industry. Um, we are not yet where we should be in terms of AI literacy. We see that people are starting to develop skills, but that's still something that is not let's say well distributed across organization, and it's true at all level of organization. It's true for people who will develop software. It's true for people who are using AI tools and they do not necessarily understand it. It's also true for C-levels, so
Yeah.
higher management, even if they won't code. And okay, there is this representation where AI is very technical, but you also need to understand the concept. Even if you're in management, you need to understand this concept. And sometimes we see that it's clearly not well understood, and we have the wrong expectation um, that people have in mind. I remember sometimes it feels like you someone brings a problem and just say, "Can't you just LLM it?"
Hmm.
No, that's a bit more complex than this. So we definitely need to go through this learning curve. We need people to get familiar, not necessarily with all the nitty-gritty details of how you optimize an algorithm of the different type of architecture, but at least understand the machine learning process. So the fact that we need data to train, that this data needs to be representative of what you have then in production. We need people to understand that AI is not only generative AI, but it's wider than this. You have supervised and supervised. Let's not go into all the details because I could go for a long time. And so, but we need to understand that it's wider than this. There is a learning curve at all level of companies
Hmm.
um, and also across department because different department will have different needs, obviously. But it's not only IT that needs to understand what AI is.
Yeah.
Everyone in the end in companies should have an understanding of the basic concept of AI. That's something that is transformational. As computers were transformational a few decades ago, now we don't train people anymore. The
Yeah.
computer is just something that we are familiar with. 30 years ago, we were training people using computers.
Hmm.
Down the road, I expect that people will become familiar with AI. They will understand it, we will get it, but it's not there yet, and we need really AI not to be just an IT or R&D thing, but we need people to understand. And we need also to foster a culture. So here, really for thinking about healthcare, where we have interdisciplinary collaboration. Too often, I read papers, to academic papers that, for instance, you will see um, healthcare providers that will use typically ChatGPT or large language model. And here you have something that has changed a lot. Because a few years ago, if a physician had an idea, let's say for a new implant or a
Hmm.
modification, then he could not necessarily do that on his own. So he
Hmm.
had to work with a company. So you had this collaboration that was taking place.
Yeah.
There was no choice. But now we have tools that give access to very technical and very tricky resources, but these tools are available for everyone. And too often you see papers where you would have, for instance, someone from healthcare background trying to use technical tools to do something that it's not supposed to do and write a paper saying, oh, it's failing to do this. Yes, because it was not supposed to do that in the
Hmm.
first place, or you did not fine tune it, or your data set doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
And you see this happening also the other way around.
Hmm.
It's very easy to understand why it would fail if a healthcare provider tried to apply machine learning without really understanding what's going on behind the curtain. But too often we also see very technical solutions developed by engineers and without any link with actual users
Hmm.
and become with something that is great from a technical standpoint. But when you start discussing with intended users, it doesn't really fit the need.
Hmm.
So we absolutely need this collaboration.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just healthcare providers and the AI engineers. I think that for projects related to AI in healthcare, you will need obviously healthcare providers, you will need AI engineers. Depending on the case, you will also need to have patient representation. So you can think about advocacy group. You would need IT.
Hmm.
Usually AI engineers also have an IT background or an IT understanding, but if you want your solution to be scalable, I would really recommend to also include IT in the project. And depending on the case, then you could also have regulatory bodies also involved. But that really depends on the actual project here. But no matter what, you at least need a healthcare provider and someone who has an understanding of AI from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, so I remember Jensen Huang mentioned that in this era, everybody is kind of a developer, right? Because of AI, and you don't even need to learn how to code. And it goes back to, for example, like a ChatGPT recently released a new model, which has kind of a canvas. I use it and I find out actually it's not too bad because they have a separate two columns, and one column tell me how to use it and the other one I just copy and paste the code. I find out it's extremely easy to code right now with the help of AI. And also I'm teaching at community college, and my student within 6 weeks just learn a little bit coding knowledge, and they will be able to create a fully function game just by copy and paste and asking AI questions. They will be able to do that. I saw it's so powerful. And what do you see the new like developer, new generation developer? Is that text prompt, or you think that coding or logic, or you mentioned that AI literacy? Do you mean that people need to learn how to use it, or you think people need to learn how to create it?
You need both.
Hmm.
You need to learn how to create this. You
Hmm.
need to understand. You really need to go through a process to
Hmm.
understand how it works.
Hmm.
But on a daily basis, you should
Hmm.
actually use, well, most cases, again, there will be particular cases, but most developer will end up using this type of models where you actually describe what you want to do, and
Yeah.
it will create a function. So it will create a
Yeah.
program, and it will even, you have the solutions where you describe what you want, it provides you with a code, it provides you with an explanation of the code, and it will render an output. For instance, if you're asking for a code for,
Yeah.
let's say, a web page or a small application, it will render all that. And that's super useful. I do use it. I'm not, by training, I'm not a coder.
Hmm.
I do a lot of code, but it was really driven by the fact that I need some code. I needed some code for an article. I needed some code for a project as what I was working on, but it's not my core competency. And this type of tools helps. It helped a lot because I'm not coding Python every
Hmm.
day.
Yeah.
But okay, I can do this, but it's way faster for me to do that using this type of tools.
Yeah. Right.
Yet there is something that I know. I mean, I learned coding
Hmm.
before these tools, so
Yeah.
I learned to understand all the logic of code,
Hmm.
all the control structure,
Yeah.
all the algorithmic, and I think this is really a key component
Hmm.
of this. And perhaps tomorrow people will learn pseudocode, perhaps only pseudocode, but they will need to understand the logic to
Hmm.
really understand what a code does. They may not need to understand, well, it's not even understanding, but know the exact syntax
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
the different languages. And when you
Yeah.
think about it, it could be JavaScript, it could be C
Yeah.
Sharp, it could be Python. You have such some foundational uh, element and control structure that you find in all these languages.
Yeah.
But they have different syntax. It's not the same word to, or the exact same syntax to have a for loop,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Right.
But you need to understand what a for loop is, what a while loop is, what a conditional instruction is. This is something that you need to understand. And you have to go through the process of at least coding from time to time
Hmm.
um, during your training process to really develop some familiarity with this.
Hmm.
And down the road, that's something that can help you spotting when the output of
Hmm.
coding agent is
Yeah.
not exactly what you expect.
Yeah.
It can help you understand what it does
Hmm.
because, well, okay, that's very nice if you have a small application with not too much code. But if you have a very large application, then you need to be able to isolate a specific part of the code that will be relevant for the feature that you want to achieve. You
Hmm.
also need to understand that if you want to debug, if you want, for instance, to track the value of a variable or an object
Hmm.
and look at the different values, the different properties throughout a workflow,
Hmm.
for instance. So I would say we definitely should use it,
Hmm.
but not completely rely on it. We need to be able to understand what it does and not blindly take
Hmm.
the output, paste it in an interpreter, and run it. This is a recipe for failure. You
Hmm.
really need to be able to understand that, but definitely use it. That's um, something that is extremely useful when you think about productivity. You can have developer that can do, I would say, 10x in productivity, in particular, entry-level developers in
Hmm.
particular. This is where we see the larger improvement in productivity thanks to generative AI DSS for entry level because it helps people getting up to speed faster.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, definitely, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. What's your advice you would give to startup looking to develop AI solutions for healthcare industry, like AI healthcare startups? What do you give? What will you give the this advice?
So I would um, pay attention to the fact that an AI model should not be um, at least this is not where I see the opportunities, but an AI model should not be the product in itself. I think that we need to identify a need and try to address this need with a full-blown solution, something that, okay, there may be an AI model running in the background
Mm,
behind the curtain, but in the end, people will use something that you can integrate and consume in your daily operations.
mm,
And customers typically are not coders. And by the way, thinking about this term and reflecting on the previous question, we are moving from coders to developers.
mm,
But end users, in particular in healthcare,
mm,
they are not developers. So they need a way to consume. So the product goes beyond the model. Also, models, that's something, if you really focus on this, is something that I believe is kind of risky
mm.
because things change very, very rapidly. An
Yeah,
architecture that is relevant today in 3 months may be completely obsolete.
yeah,
And
right.
if it's
Mm,
not obsolete, you will have to retrain it. So
yeah.
that's something that it's not once and done. You will have to retrain it every 3 months. You will have to redevelop a model. That's something that is extremely expensive if you have a large model. So you will need a lot of funding if you're just focusing on developing a model. I
Mm,
would definitely recommend creating a solution that address a need using models, AI models,
mm,
yes, but in a way where you can provide your own models,
mm,
but it should be extremely specialized so that you do not have to compete against Google DeepMind, against OpenAI, or
mm.
against Amazon. They are paying a lot of attention to healthcare.
Yeah.
So you don't want to compete against them. Except
Mm,
you have extremely good funding, you don't want to compete with
mm,
them.
yeah.
So develop some kind of workbench, some kind of user interface that people can use to integrate an AI-powered workflow in their daily operations.
Mm,
I think that's the best approach at this time for, let's say, reasonably funded um, startups.
yeah.
But models, that's if we're just focusing on models, that's very risky because things change very rapidly, and also think that things get easier. So if your architecture is not obsolete, you may spend a lot of time, a lot of resources today to achieve one specific use case, to develop a model to do one specific task.
Mm,
But things that were difficult to achieve 6 months ago are
mm,
pretty easy now.
mm,
So that's also something to consider. Make sure that you have a position that can be defended, that give you an advantage, and that this advantage is something that will remain over time. You don't want to spend some time and effort developing something that is difficult today
Mm.
but will end up being pretty easy down the road because then your position will not be easy to defend on the market.
Hmm. Yeah, what do you see, for example, like the future of AI education? I can see there are a lot of universities have a lot of like AI certifications for example, C-suite people or like a learning. Like you see, like Google has a lot of free AI certifications and also Microsoft. What do you see these types of training? For example, if somebody feels like, oh, I want to learn AI, what do you see? Where can they go and what should they learn? Yeah.
Hmm. Um, Well, it obviously depends on where you start from. If you're a developer, you can go directly into the code. You
Mm.
can learn Python if you more used to another language. Or why not? But really, Python has become dominant over the past few years. So for a developer, I think that yeah, you can let's say have a bottom-up approach, but for people who don't have a strong, very strong technical background and IT-oriented background, I would really recommend by first looking at the, let's say, um, generalities of machine learning. So, and it should not be AI, even that, and it's
Mm.
clearly not generative AI. This is not the right way to approach that, but
Mm.
really think about getting the basics of
Mm.
machine learning. When you think about it, AI is part of machine learning.
How about
Um,
like a data science? I know a lot of people are trying to grasp what they want to learn. So some people learn data science. I know a lot of designers are learning data science because they think, oh, AI, right? The basic feeding stuff is the fuel, is the data. So what do you see like, as you mentioned, machine learning, right? What's the difference between machine learning, data science, AI, generative AI?
so data science, I would say this is in yeah the border is a bit fuzzy. There are gray areas
Hmm.
here, but data science to me that's something that is really based on traditional statistics.
Oh.
So you are trying to infer statistical laws to evaluate what is your mean, what is your standard deviation, what is your distribution. To me, this is how I see data science. Um, in machine learning and artificial intelligence, and
Mm.
actually that's machine learning that is part of artificial intelligence, at least the way I see things. And I'm
Mm.
sure not everyone will agree with this. Um, but both machine learning and artificial intelligence, that's not really driven by how well we fit to a theoretical model,
Mm.
but, but this is driven by what are the operational results.
Mm.
So I guess that's really where the difference is.
Mm.
It's was the fact that yes, in machine learning you are trying to infer um, laws rather than seeing whether data fit a certain law. So the approach is a bit different. In
Mm.
data science, you would assume that, okay, your data follow a certain law and you're trying to get to evaluate the parameters of the law. Um, in machine learning, AI, you get the data and you kind of infer behavioral rules, even if it don't match a specific statistical law, even if you have somehow sometimes no clue about error, margin errors, about uncertainty. What really matters is,
Mm.
does it work in production? Does it work in real life?
Mm.
And this is why the workflow, the machine learning workflow, where you train on one part of your data, you validate on another part of the data,
Mm.
the validation approach is key here. And
Mm.
that's really what makes the difference between data science, which is
Mm.
statistic driven,
Mm.
and machine learning that is really about driving action and decision and seeing whether it works on test data.
Mm. Yeah.
more
So
practical.
do you see like, for example, school provide a lot of AI certification or degrees? Are those kind of like the next trend? For example, like if you put those types of certification degree on the LinkedIn, well, it like add up your
Mhm.
value.
Today, yes.
Mm,
Today, because we are in the middle of this learning curve, perhaps even at the beginning of this learning curve, we need to take action. We need to be active through this process
mm,
and go and fetch the information, fetch the training. And the good news is that you have a lot of resources. You have a lot of training.
mm,
You even have free training. You
yeah.
have free certification sometimes. Um, so that's the good news. But that's an effort that you have to. Just because if you're already a professional, it means that this is not something that you have learned
Mm,
at school. This is not something that was there 10 or 15 years ago. So this is new. You have
mm,
to adapt. So if you are able to justify that you have a certain certification, at least it shows that yes, you paid attention during all that time.
mm,
You updated your knowledge, you upgraded your skills, and you kept uh, you keeping up with the pace of innovation, let's say. So
mm,
that's something that is valuable.
mm,
And again, that gives also something tangible.
mm,
Um, so it has to be something active. Obviously, cooperation can help, but I really recommend that people would actually be active and not wait for their company or their healthcare organization to provide training, which is usually it's a very general
mm,
because company have to provide training for everyone. But
mm,
if you really want to be able to have to gain actionable knowledge for your role,
mm,
either as a healthcare provider or as someone working in the medical device field or any field that matter, you
mm,
really need to be active to select the training that are relevant for you. If you're not from technical background, start with the basic and learn, let's say, the machine learning and AI workflows. That would give you a good understanding, a good, let's say,
mm,
foundational understanding.
mm. And looking ahead, what types of like a future of AI will you foresee in the future and also change the industries? What types of AI in the future that you think it will change the kind of different industries?
So, if I'm thinking about healthcare, which is
Mm,
industry that I know best, there are several things to me that will be really transformative. The first thing is more specifically for pharmaceutical companies.
mm,
For over a century now, we have been discovering drugs. We've been finding
mm,
drugs. We've been identifying drugs, and we are actually moving away from this because now we are moving to drug design.
mm.
We now have models. Perhaps you've heard about AlphaFold from DeepMind,
Yeah, yeah.
where you can predict the structure of a protein and you can also reverse the thing. So if you want to
Yeah.
have a specific structure, a specific
Mm,
function for a protein, you
mm,
can design the sequence. You can design the protein to achieve a certain functionality. So we are
mm,
moving from finding a molecule that can act as a drug
mm,
as to designing a
mm,
molecule that can act as a drug. And FFold is not the end of the story because, okay, you may have a protein that is designed on your PC. That's very nice, but then you need to synthesize it.
mm.
And now we also see models that
Yeah.
are able to do that. And it's not perfect. There are still limitations. AlphaFolds are limitations, have
Mm,
limitations. Models that predict how to synthesize a molecule have limitations. But we are we have made so much headway
yeah.
over the past 5 years. It's really incredible, and I think that's something that is transformative for the healthcare industry, for
Yeah.
healthcare in general. Robotics, that's something that will be very important. Um, and actually, it's not really limited to healthcare, but we are at a point where AI is starting to leave your PC, leave your Mac. It's not living only on your
Yeah,
PC.
it's like from 2D and walk out with the entire ChatGPT brain, types of very smart, owns tons of doctor degrees and pass a
Mm.
lot of bars, and they have hands. And I saw like the news is it says that right now the Gen Z, they kind of doesn't want to get the kind of college or university degree. They become blue belt generation. They start going to plumbing after high school. And what I'm worried after see Tesla robots come out, it's like, wow, now they can do plumbing. And what can those young generation do? Yeah.
Well, Tesla, very maybe a little bit overpromising here. Perhaps we heard things in the news. I'm not sure
Hmm.
what is true, what is not true, but I think that um, yeah, the demonstration that Tesla did, I think it was 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
we are not there yet, and it's not something that we will see
Maybe
in
there's
two
like a
years.
human wearing like the costume of the robot and doing some demo, but it looks very cool.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely looks very cool. There is still a lot of things that need to happen,
Hmm.
and I don't see that happening in the next couple of years. That will take some
Mm,
time. We will
mm,
get there, but that will take time. But we are definitely at a point where AI now can be used. It has better, let's say, visual understanding capability and spatial understanding. So
mm,
with these new capabilities, it's now able to interact with the physical world,
mm,
to integrate signals from sensors.
mm,
So robotics is definitely something that will make a lot of progress. So that's
mm,
something that is interesting for healthcare.
mm,
In particular, think about what happened in the
mhm,
operating room
mm.
about microsurgery.
Oh yeah.
So we are really moving, let's say, to um, embodied artificial intelligence.
Mm,
I would see that, and that should surprise no one because this is what we've seen in other places where AI has been applied. But I
mm,
see that first for narrow applications, so things that will be very specialized. If we have a robot that does microsurgery, it may be doing one thing in microsurgery,
mm,
very well, but narrow application.
mm,
Um, and then extend it to wider and more general application. And that's why this Tesla Optimus demonstration looks very cool. But here we are talking about robots that are very generalist, that can do a lot of things, that can interact with a variety of environment. And this is something that is much more difficult to achieve than having robots that do one thing very well.
yeah, right. And
So,
yeah,
yeah,
cool. Um,
there is, if I'm thinking about how AI could be transformative in the next, say, the next decades, well,
mm,
generative AI definitely that's something that will be very, very important.
yeah.
I think that it was really a moment when ChatGPT was released because that was the first time where everyone could use AI, and it
Mm,
really put AI on the map for a lot of people
mm,
that drew a lot of attention. Um, it gave access to these tools,
mm,
and that will change a lot of things on the job market. There are many places where we hear AI will not replace you,
yeah.
but someone using AI will replace you, and
Yeah.
that's a message for your college students.
Mm,
Um, they are the best equipped with this. They
yeah.
may be fearing that AI will replace them, but people who are now working in companies should be worried about the college students,
Mm,
current college students. We will arrive well equipped to work with AI,
mm,
and that's why people should definitely, even if you're already working in a company, even if you have a lot of experience in your domain, you
mm,
should definitely pay attention to that,
mm,
and you can think about using it in your role. And
mm,
it's really it's not something that is limited to technical roles.
yeah.
um most recently I moved to a marketing position. I'm using artificial intelligence to for marketing purposes. So
Mm,
okay, you can think about generative content for let's say visuals, all of
yeah.
that. All
Yeah.
that still
Have
seems
you
to work,
used
but that's yeah,
Canvas? Yeah.
that's let's say the obvious use cases. But you can do other things.
Mm.
Personally, I'm using AI to do user voice analysis.
Oh,
So we get feedback from customers, thousands of customers. And this is not something that we can analyze just looking through, sipping through all the records. But you can actually use AI to create clusters, to find
mm,
similarities that will not be depending on how someone has
mm,
categorized an ID or some
yeah.
feedback.
Mm,
And so you can apply AI in many, many areas. It's not limited to developing product. It's not limited to IT and
mm,
people with a strong technical background.
mm,
What I'm doing, okay, I coded most of it, but you can also do it you can do it with tools such as Claude that has clustering capabilities. This is something that everyone can do.
mm,
Now you have to gain to develop AI literacy
mm.
to see how you can use it in your role and actually benefit from AI.
Yeah, and yeah, today we discuss a lot of great like a AI topic. And last, do you have any like a last, for example, like a calling or any suggestions you wanna talk to our audience? And by the way, our audience are more developers and designers, and with AI, AR, VR, XR. What's your advice for the our audience?
Well, AI for AR, virtual reality, augmented reality. I think that there is a lot of synergy that is bound to appear because if you think about augmented reality, you absolutely need to have an understanding of your environment.
Oh yeah,
And
spatial, right?
actually, this is something I worked on a project that is somehow connected with augmented reality where we would actually use goggles,
Oh,
actually use smart glasses, um, to allow a remote technician to see what an on-site technician does.
oh,
And
so it's more like a the beginner wear it and become instant expert just because someone remotely give some instructions to the glass.
well, there is this, but it goes beyond just sharing what the person sees.
Hmm.
Um, you can actually flag parts. For instance, if you are looking at a CT scanner, okay, that's a very complex machine.
Hmm.
But you can have an advanced technician who's remote who
Hmm.
would actually tag a specific component, and it can
Hmm.
actually show, it can be projected
Hmm.
on an augmented reality device, and so that it
Hmm.
can be tracked and properly identified by a technician on site. Um, it's also something that can be used and here I'm just connecting the dots with a project I've been involved into. You can, and that's really technical oriented. That's for technicians working on scanners. You can also use augmented reality to provide guidance when someone is performing complex task
Hmm.
to be able to identify components to do things. Okay, this cable goes here.
Hmm.
Watch out for this. Here is your point of control for this voltage or this amperage, this kind of thing. So you can use that
Hmm.
to provide guidance. But obviously, you need a way um, to understand what the person is looking at.
Hmm.
So this is where I see a lot of synergy between AI and augmented reality and virtual reality. Virtual reality also, that's a great tool for training, I think.
Yeah, right.
Um, That's pretty obvious. You need AI in the background. And here I'm thinking about healthcare application. You need AI in the background so that you can run simulated cases. You
Yeah.
think about a healthcare provider and you try to simulate procedures that are supposed to happen in the operating room,
Yeah.
or to pre-plan that. You need to be able to, yeah, just predict what the next steps will be. If someone takes an action, you need a system that is able to predict, okay, what will be the next step? What will be the next state?
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I see a lot of synergy. Um, yeah, I think that's the challenge that I see though for and here it's not really about AI. That's really about virtual reality and augmented reality. That's the devices that we are using.
Mm.
I think it's really interesting to see now actual glasses
Mm.
um, and small devices. So it's becoming more and more usable, but we
But like
still have
Orion,
kids.
right? They just Meta just recently announced
Yeah,
Orion.
it may think makes me think about the heads-up display that you now have on planes,
Mm.
where it's something that is very minimalistic.
Mm.
It provides you with information,
Yeah.
but we still see, and here I'm thinking about the Apple device.
Oh,
Um,
Vision Pro.
exactly.
Hmm.
This type of thing, okay, that's sounds very cool,
It's
but
very
this
expensive.
it's
Three-
very expensive.
3,600. Yeah. And
And
then, yeah,
it's
it's too
just
big.
something that is bulky. This is not something that is very usable, I think.
Mm.
So there is I think some progress to be made on the terminal, on device that is used to deliver an augmented and virtual reality experience.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, yeah, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. We release episodes weekly. If you enjoy this conversation, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Support us by give us a follow and a 5-star rating, or subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Thank you and see you next time.